Hey everybody, welcome to the Addiction Unlimited podcast, where you get to learn everything you want to know about addiction and recovery. I'm your host, Angela Pugh, co-founder of Kansas City Recovery, life coach, and recovering alcoholic. To learn more about me, you can listen to episode 0 on your podcast app or find us on the web at addictionunlimited.com. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode number 124 of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. I'm your coach, Angela Pugh. Thank you for spending some time with me today listening to the pod. We're going to take a super deep dive into grief and mourning today. That may sound a little weird or off topic, but the truth is, when we give up our substance and move into recovery, you are really going through a grief and mourning process. You are closing one chapter of your life and moving into a new one, and there's a sense of loss that comes with that. I don't know why I haven't covered this topic before, because it is a regular piece of conversation with me and my clients, and it really resonates with people. So I decided to do a pod about it and give you some insight into some of the things you're probably experiencing in your recovery journey. Before we jump into today's episode, I have some awesome news to share. A few weeks ago, I scheduled a webinar, Stop the Yo-Yo Sobriety. And you guys probably remember this. I was literally recording an episode and just decided in that episode to schedule a webinar. So it happened, Stop the Yo-Yo Sobriety. And it was just for you guys to get on with me. I could give you an opportunity to see firsthand how I work and give you some extra tips and tricks for your sobriety. And of course, like the badasses you are, you took action, and we had an amazing webinar that was so much fun for me. And so many of you have scheduled consultations with me, and we're getting to work together and get to know each other. And that is literally my favorite thing. So I woke up the next morning after the webinar, and I had an email from someone, and they said they were in the UK and stayed up until 1 a.m. just to be on the webinar with me. And she said it was well worth it. I love that. I'm so grateful for those kind words and good feedback. So I know I'm giving you guys information that's valuable to you. And I'm so proud of you guys for taking action. You took so much action that all my consultation appointments filled up almost immediately. I started getting emails from people saying, I'm trying to schedule a consultation with you, but it says there's no availability, and I've been waiting months to work with you. So my assistant Tiffany called me and asked if we could add more days to the consultation calendar, and we did. I think we added a whole additional week for you to get a consult with me and talk about the Recovery 2K program and get signed up, because we have a new group starting. And I've said this before, I can't give you all the secrets, but if you have been thinking about doing this program, it's really fun. It's pretty intense. It is serious recovery stuff. But if you've been thinking about it, I would really get on it. And if you schedule a consult with me, you'll understand that better. But don't procrastinate on this. I promise you, you do not want to put this off, okay? And the consultation is so important too. You and I have to have a few minutes to connect, and it gives me the opportunity to answer your questions and allows me to understand if you're in the right place to do this program. Like I always tell you guys, there is no magic wand or magic pill to make you sober and solve all your problems overnight. And I am not that magic pill either. I cannot make you ready. You have to be ready to show up, to work with me, to connect with your private tribe, but you have to be ready to do it. Sometimes it feels like people so desperately want to stop the yo-yo sobriety, but they aren't actually putting any effort into it, and then they relapse over and over and can't figure out what's wrong. And you have to analyze your level of effort. What are you really doing for your recovery. Not how much are you thinking about it or being mad about it, but what are you doing? And if you are ready to do, not just think about and talk about, but actually do things to build your recovery, and you want guidance and support and a plan, then you are the perfect fit for the Recovery 2K. But if you aren't quite there yet, I can't make you ready. You have to be ready when you come to me. And that's why we do the consultations, to make sure we're on the same page and ready to get busy. I have no desire to take your money and have you not get results. So it's super important that we're on the same page and ready to have some fun and feel better. I think there are only probably a few spots left for the Recovery 2K group getting ready to start right now. So if you want to jump in and get your spot, do a consultation with me. We added some extra days, and this isn't something to procrastinate on because consults and enrollment will be closed on August 26th because the program starts. I can't have the group starting and me still doing consultations. So it is going to close August 26th. So you have then to get that taken care of. And remember, seats in this program are limited because everyone gets a lot of one-on-one time and connection with me. So I can only take so many people at a time. So don't procrastinate. That is the message here. You've got a week to get on it, okay? Now, let's jump into this topic of mourning and loss today. I don't know if you guys recognize that this is what you're going through when you give up alcohol or drugs, but it really is a grieving process. I'm sure many of you have heard about the stages of grief, right? I think most of us are familiar with that. And we're definitely going to dig into those today. And I want to work on some perspective around this because I am crazy about your mindset and your perspective being right because that so much sets in motion what your experience is going to be. If your perspective is good and healthy and your mindset is good and healthy, you're going to have a much different experience all the way around in everything that you do. So I really want to dig into some of that stuff too. And as people with addiction, we tend to be very sensitive and we like to blow things out of proportion, good things and bad things. But even just the simple fact of being an alcoholic, we blow it way out of proportion and convince ourselves that our problem is so much worse than other people's problems and no one understands us and we got the short end of the stick and it's so hard to be one of us. And it is hard to be an alcoholic. But it isn't any more difficult than being a million other things. Also, what is so hard for one person may not be challenging at all for someone else. So making it seem like your problems are so much bigger or more difficult really doesn't even make sense. And it doesn't serve you to have that sort of perspective and that outlook on it. There are so many mental health struggles, disabilities, special needs that people have, where they would love to be in a position to have support groups all over the world where they know all they have to do is show up for free, by the way, and their problem can be solved. I promise you, people with major illness like cancer or COPD or MS, they would love the opportunity to just walk into a support group and let people love and support them and have their illness become manageable and almost non-existent. They would love that opportunity. I bet people with chronic depression or some people with bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, they would love to have a solution so simple that would manage all the symptoms and allow them to live a comfortable and amazing life full of love and community and support. And just think about all of the, autism, all the hundreds of learning challenges and thousands of physical challenges. People get hurt and injured every day, and it changes their lives forever. I would be willing to bet all those people would love to have a challenge where the solution was so straightforward and required a little personal investment and energy and willingness instead of a lifetime of pain and pharmaceuticals and declining quality of life. You see what I'm saying? As alcoholics, we paint this picture for ourselves that we're so unlucky, that we have this thing that is so awful and terrible, and woe is us. Feel bad for us because we can't drink alcohol. But when you put it in perspective, there are much bigger challenges you could be facing. And I promise you, you will have bigger challenges in your lifetime because it's just the nature of life. Life is challenging. Life is hard. I really want you to keep this in perspective. You can't drink alcohol. So what? You only care so much about alcohol because you have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. Non-alcoholic people do not care about alcohol. They don't obsess over how will they ever have fun again if they don't drink. They don't obsess over not having a drink because their lives and their brains don't revolve around alcohol. There are thousands of struggles that are so much more challenging and difficult to get through. And when you get caught up feeling sorry for yourself for being alcoholic, I want you to consider some of those other things that people go through every day that are far more difficult, and get your head together. You have an illness that requires you to show some dedication and commitment to getting better. You have a situation that requires you to better yourself. It requires you to step up and handle yourself. That's all. So much of this is a mental game. And I don't mean game as if it's lighthearted or child's play. I mean game like we've got to have some strategy and skill in how we handle our heads and the committee. It takes time and training and guidance, and it is mental, not physical. A huge piece of that mental challenge is the grieving process. It's hard to leave something behind that has become so important to you, something that you have relied on, that has been a steady and dependable sidekick, right up until it turned on you and started creating problems. There's nothing strange about grieving the loss of alcohol from your life or having fear about what your future will look like without it. And again, I want you to keep this in perspective. It's no different than grieving a death and having that sadness of missing that person, sadness thinking about what your life will be like without them. It's absolutely no different than a breakup or a divorce. All of a sudden, you're facing a new future that looks very different than you thought it was going to. There are a million behaviors you're used to doing a certain way with your person that now you have to figure out a new way to do them without that person, without calling them, without relying on them. You can't take them to the holidays with your family anymore. You aren't going to go certain places anymore because that's where you always went together, or that's where all your couples friends are and you aren't a couple anymore. It's no different than leaving a long-time job. Maybe you got a better job or a promotion, or maybe you got laid off. Either way, there's this sense of sadness and fear moving forward into the unknown. Or when you change your eating habits, you have to make adjustments to support your new lifestyle. And there is some sadness and fear when you consider not overindulging in the pies and muffins and cakes and donuts. And you think about moving on from your favorite fast food or that dish at your favorite restaurant that's so yummy, but it's so bad for you. For me, that dish is lobster mac and cheese at Capitol Grill. It's a life-changing experience, my friends. I don't even eat the lobster. I have them leave it out, but this is the yummiest, creamiest, most incredible, oversized dish of cheesy goodness that you will ever have. And now I only have it a few times a year instead of every week because I want to love my heart and not abuse it by clogging up all of its arteries. Keep it in perspective, people. Leaving alcohol behind doesn't require any more from you than many other life situations that you will go through over and over again. So let's talk about these stages of grief and how we can manage them and understand them as it relates to our lifestyle choices and not the loss of a person. And the stages of grief came about in 1969, I think, by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And it's just a concept that she created from some research, and now it's commonly referred to as the 5 stages of grief, okay? Denial. This can't be happening to me. Anger. Why is this happening? Who's to blame? Bargaining. Make this not happen, please, and in return, I will do ... Depression. I'm just too sad to do anything. Acceptance. I'm at peace with what happened. And those are the 5. Let me go through them again without the little sentences. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. A couple of things I want to point out here. One is you do not have to go through all 5 stages to mourn something, and you don't go through them in any particular order or for any length of time. Like for me, I don't think I had denial. Like I was pretty clear I was an alcoholic, and as it became more clear, there was no thought of this can't be happening to me. And I was never angry about it. I'm not a blame person anyway. I don't immediately look for things to be someone's fault because my belief system is in personal responsibility. I want to know my part so I can get better. I'm not worried about someone else's part because I can't change that. I don't have any control over them, but I can change me. And blame just makes people feel bad. I don't have any desire to make somebody feel bad, right? It's immature and it's a waste of time for everyone. It just doesn't accomplish anything. You see what I'm saying? This isn't a process that everyone goes through the same way in the same order. There's no blueprint like, okay, first you're going to go through denial and that's going to last 2 weeks. Then you'll move into anger and that will be a whole month. Then you'll go right into bargaining for a week. You get what I'm saying? There's no rhyme or reason to it. Also bear in mind with substances, your brain has been hijacked a bit and it has been manipulated and changed. So some of these are going to fit a little easier just because of the science of addiction. You are going to struggle a little more with depression because we have compromised those neurotransmitters in the brain with alcohol and drugs. So that's a natural piece of the puzzle in recovery. You've heard us talk on other episodes about anhedonia and things of that nature. So some of this stuff will fit more and fit differently with an addicted brain. Where someone grieving the loss of a loved one may not have strong depression, they may just have some general sadness that takes time to get used to being without that person because those pieces of their brain aren't as vulnerable as ours because alcohol messes it all up. Think about these stages and think about where you currently are: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And you may weave in and out of all of those throughout the course of the day. And there's nothing wrong with that either. There is no right or wrong way to experience loss. Whether it's a loss of a person, a job, a relationship, or a bad habit. Like I tell you with feelings and anxiety, if you can pause for a second and figure out what the underlying feeling is, then you can start to deal with that feeling instead of wanting to drink to numb it. Same thing here. If you can identify where you're at in an uncomfortable moment, then you can start figuring out how to deal with that rather than wanting to run from it and feel sorry for yourself and drink to numb it. Let's look at these a little deeper. Denial. When you first learn about a loss, right, it's normal to almost have some shock, right? Shock is one of the things they talk about with this a lot. Like, this isn't happening. You may feel shocked or numb. And like, I would say, I guess maybe it's just hard for me to relate it to denial, but I know like when I had my accident, obviously I was in shock and I don't remember a lot after my accident, but I definitely remember being in that moment of like, what the heck is going on, you know, and probably partially because I was drunk too. So it's not like I was thinking really clearly, but, but I remember having some of that, and it's kind of a temporary way to deal with the rush of overwhelming emotion, right? It's a defense mechanism to protect you. We go into denial when a situation or circumstances or the feelings about a situation are so extraordinary that our brain feels like it can't take it. That's when we go into denial. How about anger? As the reality sets in and you're faced with the pain of the loss, you might feel frustrated. You might feel helpless, right? In 12-step programs, we talk about powerlessness. And a lot of that stuff can very easily turn into anger. And you might direct that anger toward other people or toward your higher power. I hear people in 12-step meetings all the time talk about being really mad at God. Or life in general. You may just get mad at life in general. It's also not uncommon to be angry with the thing or person that you have lost. That is totally natural too. I think to be angry with alcohol is natural. I want you to get angry with it. I think this is what fueled me in my beginning because I couldn't believe how it turned on me and the position I ended up in because of my drinking. Alcohol was my enemy and I did not want it in my body, period. This is where I want you to get. That switch in perspective where you no longer see alcohol as your solution and your relief from feelings in life, but as the predator that is wreaking havoc in your life and driving you to run and hide from your life. That is not a solution. Bargaining. In bargaining, you dwell on what you could have done to prevent it, right? Like, if only I would have done this, or what if I would have tried this thing? If I would have done this sooner, you know, there's a million ways we go with this. And you hear us talk about, well, I know I hear it a lot in 12-step meetings, but it's a common, Foxhole Prayers, right? This is a common thing. Please, 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 please get me out of this. And I promise I will never do XYZ again. Please, please, please. Those are Foxhole Prayers, right? And that's part of that bargaining process, right? You might want to strike a deal with your higher power. Please take this away from me. Take away this obsession. And I swear I will never drink again. Depression. Sadness sets in as you really start to understand the loss and the effect it's going to have on your life. And this can come out in a lot of ways. I think sometimes people think of depression as people just laying in bed and not doing anything. And that's definitely true. That certainly can be true. But, you know, depression also it's crying. It is insomnia or whatever other sleep issues. It is a loss of appetite. It's feeling overwhelmed or overwhelmed with regret for sure and lonely. Again, this is going to sometimes be a little more prominent with substance abusers because of that brain science and what substances do in our brains. However, that doesn't mean that this depression will be super hard or overwhelming or last a long time. I don't know that I went through this much at all because my perspective was so different in that I was grateful to finally be getting away from alcohol. I had felt trapped and felt like such a piece of garbage for so long. And I was so exhausted by my drunken life that when I quit, I was overwhelmed with gratitude to finally escape. So I didn't feel depressed about it. I just did not want alcohol in my body, and I was going to do whatever I had to do to make sure it didn't get in my body. And then acceptance, which of course is my favorite. And this is, you accept the reality of your loss. It can't be changed. Although you still may feel a little sad, you're definitely able to start moving forward with your life. We talk about acceptance a lot in recovery, and I think I hit this spot in my rock bottom moment. As you know, I crashed my car. It was not a good situation. I was hurt and super drunk. And in the insanity that was happening around my accident, I realized how serious this problem really was. See, before that, I could always talk myself out of making a commitment to quit drinking. I knew I needed to quit, I just didn't do it. But after my accident, there was no denying the situation I was in. There was no denying I was an alcoholic, and I couldn't change that. It wasn't going to go away. There was a time in my life when I was young, like in my early 20s, that I thought eventually I would just grow out of drinking. I thought I would meet a nice boy and get out of working in bars, and I'd want to get a real job and buy a house and all of that American dream scenario. What happened instead was I got so caught up in my super fun life and parties and traveling and drinking that I avoided relationships because they interfered with my lifestyle. And I never really wanted to have kids because I always knew I wanted to travel. I just want to travel the world. And I definitely didn't buy a house because it's way too much responsibility. I was resistant to growing up. I didn't want any responsibility because I knew I couldn't handle it. I was doing good to keep myself and my dogs alive on a daily basis, and that's all I could manage most of my adult life. But after my accident, I was in full acceptance of the reality of my situation. There was no more ignoring it or avoiding it or hiding it or putting it off thinking I'll quit someday. Someday became that day. And you see this with so many things. How many things do you talk about doing but never get around to doing them? You think someday you'll get serious about exercise or changing your eating habits. Someday you'll take that dream vacay or go back to school or redecorate that room in your house. Someday. And someday quickly turns into never because you don't have any sense of urgency to get shit done. You'll just keep putting it off because you can do it tomorrow and be lazy today. When I crashed my car, that someday became right the fuck now. I was thrown into acceptance because there was no other option. And I was exhausted. I was tired of being so ashamed of who I was and so embarrassed by my life and my choices. It's like I was so broken that I finally wanted to be fixed. And that place of acceptance is so important because this is the foundation you build on. You've heard me talk about this in many other episodes, telling you, you are ready to get sober when you stop fighting everything. Stop arguing. Stop saying all the reasons this thing or that thing won't work for you. You stop thinking you know better or you're different or you're stronger than those people, so you won't have to do it the same way they do it. All that ridiculous, immature, adolescent BS goes out the window because you don't care about all that anymore. All you care about is someone showing you how to get better. And all that other stuff is just about pride and ego. Trying to convince yourself you're not as bad as other people is just pride and ego. Complaining about what other people talk about in AA is just pride and ego because you think it's a bad place for bad people, so you want to find all the ways you don't fit so you can tell yourself you're not bad. Worrying about people finding out, hiding, isolating, bragging about being high functioning. It's all pride and ego. When you are really ready to get your shit together and get serious about your recovery, all that stuff falls by the wayside because you recognize how trivial and unimportant it is, because the important thing is figuring out how to stay clean and sober. You expend so much energy on trying to be different, trying to do it your own way, figure out your own solutions so you can continue hiding, when the most simple thing you can do is trust in the millions of people who walked this path before you and go in with an open mind and an open heart. Stop fighting. That's what acceptance is all about. It's just saying, I'm here, it is what it is, and I want to get better and feel better. Here are the things I want you to take away from this. You're grieving the loss of something that was a huge part of your life, and make sure you keep that in perspective. It's no different than when you left college after 4 years and you closed that chapter to start a new one. You loved your college friends. Of course you're going to miss them. It was a super sad moment and your future was largely unknown, but you did it. Or when your kids go away to college, everything changes. The energy of your home changes. All your codependence comes up and your control issues and fear for their safety, and you miss them and your house feels empty and your heart is a little broken, even though them going to college is a really good and exciting thing. Or like we talked about a few minutes ago, when you go through a breakup or divorce, it's heartbreaking, especially when you have to look in the little perfect faces of your children and try to explain that to them. Try to explain adult nonsense to little kids. Your whole life changes. You're sad and lonely and confused and angry. And you get through it. Every day, one day at a time, putting one foot in front of the other. You do it. Recovery is no different. Think of all the emotions you go through, changing jobs or moving across the country for a new job, especially if it's a move you don't really want to make, but you're doing it for the career advancement, or you're going with your significant other. It's all scary and uncomfortable, and you still do it. Remember these things too. It won't always feel like this. It's like a wave. Sometimes it's really high and scary, and other times it's really low and easy and manageable. Just ride the wave. When it goes up, rely on your tools and your tribe to get you through. And when it comes down and it's going easy on you, Make sure you're utilizing your tools in your tribe and be of service to someone else whose wave is high and scary at that moment. And you can handle it even when you don't think you can. We all want to avoid pain. It is our greatest motivator because we will go to such great lengths to escape it. You may feel like you won't survive without alcohol or your life will suck without it, but I promise you, you can totally do this and your life will not suck. And one more thing I want to say on this one. When you are drunk or trying to get sober in the early weeks of recovery, you need to understand that how you feel and think in that moment is not how you will feel and think even 30 days from now. So don't try to figure out your whole life using your most broken thinking. The point of recovery is to fix your thinking so sobriety is fun. Don't decide what your life is going to look like using your broken, drunken, hungover thinking. Look at who you were 5 years ago. Are you the same person now? Or 10 years ago? If you're 28 right now, are you the same person with the same thinking as you were at 18? Heck no. Recovery is the same. You grow, you evolve, you change. So don't make decisions with your broken thinking. Also, be gentle with yourself. This is hard and it's exhausting. Care for yourself in this time. Be nice to yourself. Do nice things for yourself. Nourish your soul. Ask for extra hugs if you need them, or ask for extra quiet time if you need it. Take naps, take baths, drink a lot of water, and feed your body well. And think about this in cycles, not in a straight line. You feel good 1 minute, only to feel horrible the next. There's nothing wrong with you. You haven't gotten worse. You're actually moving forward, even when it doesn't feel like it. There are just cycles of up and down, high stress, low stress, excitement, lethargy. This is not a straight line type of situation, okay? It goes in waves, in cycles. When you are down, just know that you will go back up in another cycle. What you are feeling is normal. Your body and your brain are going through a lot of craziness. Allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling, anger, sadness, relief, these are all valid. Whatever you are feeling at any given moment is perfectly allowed and totally makes sense. Every loss has meaning. This doesn't have to be a tragedy. Make this an opportunity. Reflect on what matters to you most and how you can be better moving forward. You are not alone. 99% of us in recovery have gone through all the same things. We've had the emotions, we've ridden the roller coaster, and we survive because we do it together and we support and love each other through the hard times and through the good times. As long as we do this together, you are never alone. Okay. I've given you a lot to think about in this episode. Let's go through those 5 stages one more time. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And these are really great things. If you want to spend some time Googling, this is a great thing to Google and see how other people deal with these different stages in different situations, because it is super common to go through this stuff. And I just, more than anything, I want you to keep it in perspective. Don't blow it out of proportion. Keep it in perspective and know that you're not alone. And this is all fixable and you are perfectly fine. Okay? I'm going to link in the show notes. If you want to grab a free consult, you've only got a week left, so jump on that. I will put that in the show notes. Of course, join our Facebook group, all the other good stuff. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I will see you next week.
You've reached the end of another great episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. Candid and honest conversation about addiction and recovery. Be sure to visit us at addictionunlimited.com to join the conversation and access show notes and links to everything we talked about. Love this episode? Please take 30 seconds to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes to help us improve and give you the information you want. Thanks for listening. See you next week.